Get on your knees and clean it. Every drop. The plate shattered louder than it should have. Porcelain exploded across the diner floor, food sliding in greasy streaks between the cracks of old tiles. Coffee spilled after it, dark and steaming, spreading like something alive. Marcus didn't move right away. At 72, his body had learned to pause before obeying pain. Behind the counter, Rick wiped his hands on a towel like he hadn't just caused it. "You deaf, old man?" he snapped. "Or just slow today?" A couple sitting by the window lowered their eyes. Nobody spoke, nobody ever did. Marcus exhaled quietly, then bent down. His knees hit the floor with a dull, familiar thud. Cold tiles, sticky grease, the smell of burnt coffee and cheap oil soaked into everything. Same as yesterday, same as every day. He reached for the rag in his back pocket, hands steady even if his joints weren't. The cloth was already damp from the last mess. There was always a last mess. "Careful," Rick added, leaning over the counter with a smirk. "That plate cost more than your whole shift." A few quiet chuckles came from the corner booth. Marcus didn't look up, didn't answer. He wiped slowly, methodically, like the mess mattered, like any of it mattered. Outside, the sky hung low and gray. Wind rattled the loose edge of the diner sign, making it clatter against rusted metal. The kind of afternoon where time didn't move. It just dragged. Rick stepped around the counter, boots crunching over broken ceramic. He nudged a larger piece toward Marcus with the tip of his shoe. "Missed a spot," he said. Marcus reached for it. His fingers brushed against the sharp edge, and for a second, a thin line of red appeared across his skin. He didn't react, just wiped it on the rag and kept going. Because reacting made it worse. It always did. If you've ever seen someone treated like they didn't matter, like the room would be better if they just disappeared, you already know how quiet that kind of pain gets. "Tell me where you're watching from." The bell above the door rang. Once. Sharp. Clear. Different. Marcus paused. Not because of the sound, but because of what came after. Engines. Low. Heavy. Multiple. The kind of sound that didn't belong to this place. It rolled in from outside like distant thunder, growing louder, deeper, until it filled the air and pressed against the windows. Every head in the diner turned at the same time. Rick straightened. What the hell? The engines cut off, one by one. Silence followed, but it wasn't the same silence as before. This one had weight. The door opened. Cold air rushed in first, carrying the smell of rain, asphalt, and something metallic. Then the first man stepped inside. Tall, broad shoulders under a worn leather vest, gray in his beard but not in his eyes. Those eyes scanned the room once, slow, deliberate. Behind him, more entered, one after another, boots heavy against the floor, leather creaking, no laughter, no noise, just presence. 5, 10, 15. By the time the last one stepped in, the diner felt too small to hold them. No one moved. Not the couple by the window, not the man at the counter, not even Rick, because everyone in that room understood one thing without needing to say it. These weren't men you ignored. The first biker stopped in the center of the diner. Water dripped from his jacket onto the floor Marcus had just cleaned. He didn't seem to notice. His gaze moved across the room again, slower this time, looking, searching. Then he spoke. "Who's Marcus Hale?" The name landed like a weight. Rick blinked. "Why?" he said too quickly. "What do you want with—" The biker didn't even look at him. "Didn't ask you." The words weren't loud, but they didn't need to be. Marcus felt something shift inside his chest. A name. His name. Spoken like it meant something. That hadn't happened in a long time. Too long. He slowly pushed himself up from the floor. His knees protested, his back followed, but he stood. Still holding the rag, still stained with coffee, and a thin line of his own blood. "I'm Marcus," he said. Quiet, steady. The room held its breath. For a second, nothing happened. Then the biker in front of him took one step forward, and another, until he stood just a few feet away, close enough to see everything. The worn clothes, the tired eyes, the man people stopped noticing years ago. And then, something no one in that diner expected, happened. The biker lowered his head. Not much, just enough. Behind him, the others did the same. One after another. Dozens of men, silent, still, respect, real, undeniable. Rick's mouth opened slightly. No words came out. Marcus didn't move, didn't understand, couldn't, because men like these didn't bow to anyone, and definitely not to someone like him. The biker lifted his head again, looked Marcus straight in the eyes, and said quietly, "We've been looking for you." Marcus tightened his grip on the rag. "Why?" A pause, the kind that stretches just long enough to matter. Then the man answered, "Because of your son." The word hit harder than anything Rick had said all day. Marcus's expression changed instantly, closed, cold. "No," he said, "you've got the wrong man." A flicker passed through the biker's eyes. Not anger, something else, something heavier. "We don't," he replied. Marcus shook his head. "I don't have a son." The lie came out faster than he expected, but it had lived inside him long enough to feel like truth. Silence settled again. Then the biker said, softer this time, "Yes, you do." Marcus looked away, jaw tightening, hands shaking just enough to notice. "I said I don't." The man didn't step back, didn't argue. He just said one name. "Ethan." Marcus froze. The rag slipped from his hand, hit the floor. And for the first time in years, something cracked. No one in the diner moved, not the couple by the window, not the man at the counter, not even Rick, because something had changed, not loud, not visible, but real, the kind of shift you feel before a storm breaks. Marcus stood there, staring at the man in front of him like the name had just been pulled out of his chest. Ethan. He hadn't heard it spoken out loud in years, not since the day he decided to bury it. "No," Marcus said again, quieter this time. "You don't get to say that name." The biker didn't react, didn't step back. He just studied Marcus, carefully, like he was looking past the man standing there, into something older, something broken. "We didn't come here to disrespect you," he said. Marcus let out a dry, humorless breath. "Could have fooled me." Behind the lead biker, a few of the others shifted their weight. Not aggressive, not restless, just waiting, like they were letting something important happen. Rick finally found his voice. "All right, that's enough," he said, stepping forward, trying to reclaim the room. "You guys made your point. Now get out before I call—" He stopped, not because anyone touched him, but because one of the bikers, taller than the rest, arms crossed, eyes cold, turned his head just slightly and looked at him. That was all. Rick swallowed, took a step back, didn't finish the sentence. The lead biker kept his attention on Marcus. "You think he left you?" he said. It wasn't a question. Marcus's jaw tightened. "I know he did." "No," the biker replied calmly. "You don't." Something sharp flashed in Marcus's eyes. Anger, old, buried, still alive. "I raised that boy," he said, voice rising just enough to cut through the silence. "I know exactly what he did." A pause. Then, "He didn't leave," the biker said. Marcus shook his head. "Stop." "He didn't walk away." "I said stop. He never stopped being your son." Marcus stepped back like the words physically hit him. "Enough!" His voice cracked, just slightly, but it was there. The room felt tighter now, smaller, like the walls were closing in around something that had been sealed too long. "You don't get to come in here," Marcus continued, "and tell me who he was. You don't get to rewrite that." The biker nodded once, slow, understanding, but not agreeing. "We're not rewriting anything," he said. "We're telling you what actually happened." Marcus laughed, short, bitter. "Right. Let me guess. He had a good reason. He always does, doesn't he?" No one laughed with him. That made it worse. The biker reached into his jacket. Rick flinched. Marcus didn't. At his age, fear didn't work the same way anymore. The man pulled out something small, folded, worn. He didn't open it, just held it, carefully, like it mattered. "We didn't come here for a fight," he said, "and we didn't come here to argue." Marcus's eyes dropped to the object in his hand, then back up. "Then why are you here?" Another pause, longer this time. He could hear the wind outside again, the faint creak of the diner sign, his own breathing, and then, "Because we owe him," the biker said. Marcus frowned. "What?" "We owe him everything." A murmur passed quietly through the men behind him, not loud, but heavy. Real. Marcus shook his head again. No, you've got the wrong story. The biker stepped 1 inch closer, not threatening, just closer. No, he said. You've been living with the wrong one. Marcus felt his chest tighten, not pain, something else, something he didn't want to recognize. You think he left you? The biker continued. You think he chose something else over you? Marcus didn't answer, didn't need to. It was written all over him, the long years, the silence, the way he said, I don't have a son, like it was the only way to survive it. The biker looked at him for a moment longer, then said quietly, he died saving us. The words didn't echo. They didn't need to. They just landed. Heavy. Final. Marcus blinked. Once, like his body forgot what to do next. No, he said. But it didn't sound the same anymore. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even denial. It was thinner, weaker. The biker didn't look away. He knew it was a trap, he said. We didn't. Marcus shook his head slowly. No. He saw it before anyone else did. Stop. And when it happened, I said stop. This time Marcus's voice broke completely. He stepped back again, hit the edge of a table, didn't notice, didn't feel it, because something inside him was starting to move, something he had locked down so tight for so many years it had almost turned to stone. You're lying, he said, but the words came out hollow. You have to be lying. The biker's expression didn't change. I wish I was. Silence. Deep. Uncomfortable. No one in the diner dared to move. Rick had gone completely still near the counter, eyes darting between them like he was watching something he didn't understand. Marcus looked at the floor, at the broken plate, at the coffee stain he hadn't finished cleaning, anything but the man in front of him, because looking at him meant listening. And listening meant, no, Marcus whispered. He left. The biker's voice softened. No. Marcus closed his eyes, just for a second, then opened them again, and asked the question he didn't want the answer to. What happened? The room seemed to lean in, waiting. The biker glanced once over his shoulder at the men behind him, then back at Marcus and said, You deserve to hear it the right way. A beat. We all owe you that. He took a slow breath, like he was about to relive something that never really left. Then he spoke. It started 3 nights before the ambush. The diner disappeared, not physically. The walls were still there. The smell of burnt coffee still hung in the air. Rick was still frozen behind the counter like a man who'd suddenly realized he didn't belong in the room anymore. But for Marcus, it was gone. Because now he was somewhere else, standing at the edge of something he had spent years refusing to see. It started 3 nights before the ambush, the biker said. His voice changed, lower, heavier, like every word had weight behind it. We were running a long route, Nevada into Arizona, nothing unusual, just a transport run. Marcus didn't speak, didn't move. He just listened, and that alone felt wrong, because for years he had told himself there was nothing left to hear. We had 15 riders that night, the biker continued. Experienced men, guys who'd been on the road longer than most people stay in one place. A faint shift came from behind him, one of the other bikers nodding slightly, remembering. Ethan was leading second position. Marcus's eyes flickered. Second position, not a follower, not a kid, something more. He wasn't the loudest, the man went on, didn't try to prove anything. But when he spoke, people listened. Marcus swallowed. Hard. Because that sounded familiar. Too familiar. He had that kind of mind, the biker said. The kind that saw things before they happened. Marcus looked down at his hands. Old, worn, scarred. Hands that used to guide a younger pair, teach them how to fix things, how to build something steady, how to think ahead. We were about 2 hours out from the canyon road, the biker continued. Everything felt normal. A pause, then. But Ethan didn't like it. Marcus's head lifted slightly. He said the road was too quiet, the biker said. No traffic, no wildlife, nothing. Another biker behind him let out a slow breath. He kept checking the mirrors, kept slowing down just enough to watch the formation. Marcus could almost see it now. A road, dark, empty, and a man riding through it, paying attention. He came up beside me at one point, the biker said. Just for a second. The man's voice dropped slightly. He said, "Something's wrong." Marcus's chest tightened, because that didn't sound like fear. That sounded like certainty. I asked him what he meant, the biker continued. A small pause. He didn't answer right away. Marcus didn't blink, didn't breathe. He just looked ahead, then back at me. The biker's eyes drifted slightly, like he was seeing it again, and said, "If anything happens, don't hesitate." The diner was completely silent now. Even the wind outside seemed to fade. Marcus felt something cold move through him, because that didn't sound like a guess. That sounded like a man who already knew. He dropped back after that, the biker said, went quiet. A longer pause. We should have listened. No one spoke. No one needed to, because regret had a way of filling space all by itself. Marcus's voice came out low. "Why didn't you?" The biker looked at him, straight, honest. "Because we thought we had time." Marcus closed his eyes for a second, just a second, because that answer made too much sense. "We always think that," the biker added quietly. Marcus didn't respond, because there was nothing to say. The biker took a slow breath, then continued. "We hit the canyon road about 40 minutes later." Marcus's fingers curled slightly at his sides. The story was moving forward now, closer, to something he wasn't ready for. The road narrowed, the biker said, cliffs on one side, drop on the other. A faint tension moved through the group behind him. Memory. Shared. Heavy. "No exits," another biker muttered under his breath. The lead man nodded once. "Exactly." Marcus felt it building now, that pressure, that slow, tightening grip around something inevitable. He slowed again, the biker said, looked back at the group. A pause. And that's when everything changed. Marcus's eyes lifted, locked onto the man in front of him. "What happened?" he asked. The biker didn't answer immediately. He just looked at Marcus, like he was measuring something, making sure he was ready. Then, "The lights came on," he said. Marcus frowned. "What?" "Up ahead," the biker replied. "Bright, blinding." Another voice from the back added quietly, "Too bright." The lead biker nodded. "Floodlights, hidden until the last second." Marcus felt his pulse in his ears now. "They hit us all at once," the man continued, "front and sides, a beat. And then the road behind us," he stopped, just for a second, like even saying it again still mattered. "Was blocked." Marcus's breath caught. "Trap." The word formed before anyone said it. "Vehicles," the biker added. "Steel barriers, no way through." Marcus shook his head slowly. "No. We were boxed in," the man said. "Exactly where they wanted us." The diner felt smaller again, tighter, like the air itself was getting harder to breathe. Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. "How many?" The biker didn't hesitate. "Enough." That answer said everything. Marcus looked away, for a second, because he already knew what came next, even if he didn't want to hear it, even if part of him still wanted to believe. There had been another way. The biker leaned in slightly, not threatening, not aggressive, just close enough that Marcus couldn't escape the truth anymore. And that's when Ethan made his decision. Marcus froze. His chest stopped moving, because something inside him understood. This was it. The moment everything changed, the moment his son became something he never allowed himself to imagine. The biker's voice dropped, low, controlled. He didn't panic, he said. A pause. He didn't hesitate. Another pause. He looked at all of us. Marcus's throat tightened, and he knew exactly what he had to do. Marcus didn't realize he had stopped breathing. The diner faded again, edges blurring, sounds dulling, until all that remained was the voice in front of him. And that's when Ethan made his decision. Those words didn't feel like a continuation. They felt like a point of no return. Marcus's fingers curled slowly at his sides. "What decision?" he asked, though part of him already knew. The biker held his gaze, steady, unflinching. "The kind you don't come back from." Silence pressed in, heavy, unforgiving. Behind him, one of the bikers shifted his weight. Another looked down at the floor. A third closed his eyes for just a second, not out of weakness, out of memory. He saw it faster than all of us, the man continued. The positioning, the angles, the timing. Marcus swallowed, hard. He knew the moment those lights came on, we weren't all getting out. The words settled deep. Too deep. Marcus shook his head slowly. No, there had to be. There wasn't, the biker said quietly. No anger, no argument, just truth. There wasn't enough room, not enough time, not enough options. Marcus's chest tightened again, because that was something he understood. Too well. A life of fixing things teaches you something. Sometimes, things can't be fixed. He looked back at us, the biker said. A pause. Not panicked, not afraid. Marcus's jaw clenched, because he could see it now, not clearly, but enough. The road, the lights, and a man choosing. He signaled twice, the biker continued. Hand low, quick. Another biker nodded slightly behind him. Break formation, Marcus blinked. Why? Because staying together would have gotten us all killed. The answer came instantly, like it had been said before, like it had been lived. He split us, the man said, forced the group to scatter before the first shots even came. Marcus's breathing grew shallow. Every word was building something, something he wasn't ready to carry. But that wasn't enough, the biker added. A beat. Not by itself. Marcus looked up again, eyes searching. Then what did he do? The man exhaled slowly, like even now, saying it still cost something. He saw where the fire was coming from. A pause. 3 positions, left ridge, front barricade, rear block. Marcus felt it, that tightening. That inevitable pull toward something final. He knew if we tried to push through together, the biker shook his head slightly, we'd be riding straight into it, Marcus whispered. So he didn't. No, the man's eyes didn't leave his. He didn't. Silence. Thick. Then, he chose a direction. Marcus's heart began to pound. Which one? The biker didn't answer right away, didn't rush it. Because some truths, you don't throw, you place them. Carefully. He went toward the heaviest fire. Marcus flinched. Actually flinched, because there was no mistaking what that meant. No, he whispered. The biker nodded once. Yes. Marcus took a step back. His leg hit the chair behind him, but he didn't notice, didn't feel it. He accelerated, the man continued. Hard, no hesitation. Another biker spoke from behind, voice low. Didn't even look scared. The lead biker gave the slightest nod, because he wasn't thinking about himself. Marcus shook his head again, faster now. No, that's not. He was thinking about us, the biker said. Marcus's voice broke. Stop saying that like you knew him. The words snapped through the diner, sharp, raw. For the first time, emotion wasn't contained. It spilled. The biker didn't react, didn't raise his voice, didn't step forward. He just said, we did. That hit harder than anything. Marcus froze, because there was no arrogance in it, no claim, just fact. We rode with him, the man continued. We bled with him, we trusted him. A pause. And that night, he proved why. Marcus's shoulders dropped slightly, just a fraction, like something inside him was starting to lose the strength to fight. He turned his bike straight toward the front barricade, the biker said. Marcus's breathing stopped again. He knew that was the center, the man added, the point that held everything together. Another voice behind him. If that line broke, we had a chance. Marcus's lips parted, but no words came out, because now he understood. Not fully, but enough. He didn't say anything over comms, the biker said. A beat. He didn't warn us. Marcus frowned slightly. Why? The man looked at him, direct. Because if he did, someone would have tried to stop him. Silence. That answer, cut deeper than anything else. Marcus's eyes dropped to the floor, because that made sense. Too much sense. He just moved, the biker continued. A pause. Fast. Marcus's voice came out barely above a whisper. Alone? The biker nodded. Yeah. A long silence followed. No one moved. No one spoke. Because there was nothing left to fill that space with. Marcus felt something shift inside him, not fully, not completely, but enough to hurt. "And then?" he asked. The question he didn't want to ask but couldn't avoid. The biker took a breath, slow, heavy, like the next words carried everything, and then he said, "Then he didn't stop. He didn't stop." The words stayed in the air, heavy, unmoving. Marcus stared at the man in front of him, but he wasn't really seeing him anymore, because now he was there, on that road, in that moment. The biker's voice pulled him deeper. He dropped a gear, he said quietly, engine screaming, bike shaking under him like it knew what was coming. A faint shift moved through the group behind him, not fear, not anymore, memory, respect. He cut across the line, the man continued, sharp, controlled, put himself exactly where they didn't expect him. Marcus's fingers twitched at his sides, because he knew machines. He knew what it meant to push something past its limit, and what kind of man it took to do it without hesitation. The lights were still blinding, the biker said. Gunfire started before we even processed what was happening. A low voice behind him added, "Too fast." The lead biker nodded. "Yeah," Marcus swallowed. "Did he get hit?" The question slipped out before he could stop it. The biker didn't answer immediately. That silence said enough, but he spoke anyway. "Not right away." Marcus closed his eyes, just for a second, then opened them again, because he needed to hear it, all of it. "He moved like he'd already planned it," the biker said, "like he'd run it through his head 100 times before it even happened." Another voice. "He always did that." Marcus's chest tightened again, because that sounded like something he used to teach. "Think ahead, stay ready, fix the problem before it breaks you." "He aimed straight for the front line," the biker continued. "Didn't slow down," Marcus whispered. "Why not?" The man looked at him. "Because you don't slow down when stopping means everyone else dies." But he didn't say it like that. "He needed speed," the biker said. "Impact, confusion, a pause. He needed them to focus on him." Marcus felt something inside him twist, tight, painful, because now it was becoming clear. "He broke their formation," the biker said. Another man behind him nodded. "Completely." Marcus's voice came out rough. "How?" The biker's eyes darkened slightly. "By driving straight through it." Silence. Absolute. Because there was nothing to add to that. Marcus stared at him, trying to picture it, trying not to. "He clipped the first barrier," the biker said, "sent it sideways, took 2 of them off balance." A short breath. "He didn't stop." Marcus's jaw tightened. "He hit the second line harder." The biker's voice dropped. "Close enough they had to pull back just to avoid him." Another voice. "They weren't expecting that." "No," the lead biker said. "They weren't." Marcus felt his heartbeat in his throat now, loud, unsteady. "And that gave us an opening," the man continued. "Small, but enough." A pause. "We took it." Marcus nodded slightly, without realizing, because that part made sense. You survive when someone gives you a chance, even if it costs them everything. "We broke left," the biker said. "Some went right, didn't matter." "We were out of the kill zone," another rider added quietly. Because of him, Marcus's eyes dropped again, to the floor, to the stains, to the place where he had been kneeling just minutes ago, cleaning someone else's mess, while his son... "Where was he?" Marcus asked. The question came out barely audible. The biker didn't look away. "Still moving," a beat. "Still drawing fire." Marcus shook his head slowly. No, he would have turned back. He would have... He didn't. The words cut clean. Marcus looked up again, pain clear now, unhidden. "Why?" he asked, and this time, it wasn't anger. It was something else, something closer to breaking. The biker answered without hesitation. "Because if he turned, they'd follow him." Marcus's breath caught. "And if they followed him," the man continued, "they wouldn't be chasing us." Silence. That logic. That simple. That brutal. Marcus's shoulders dropped slightly, like something inside him was giving way. "He kept going," the biker said. A pause. "Straight through the line." Another biker's voice, lower now. "Last thing I saw was his taillight disappearing past the ridge." Marcus's eyes closed again, longer this time, because now there was no denying it, no twisting it, no hiding from it. He knew, Marcus whispered. The biker nodded once. Yeah. A long silence followed. Then Marcus asked, "Did he look back?" The question surprised even him, but it mattered, for reasons he couldn't explain. The biker's expression changed slightly, not softer, but deeper. "Yeah," he said. Marcus opened his eyes, slowly. "When?" The man took a breath, like he was choosing the moment carefully. "Right before he hit the ridge," he said. A pause. He turned his head. Just enough. Marcus's throat tightened. "And?" The biker held his gaze. He nodded. Marcus blinked. "Once." "At who?" The answer came quiet but absolute. "At us." Silence. And in that silence, something inside Marcus finally cracked open, not completely, not yet, but enough. Enough to let the truth in. Just a little. The diner was silent, not the normal kind of silence, not the kind Marcus had lived in for years, the quiet of being ignored, overlooked, forgotten. This was different. This silence was full, heavy with something real. Marcus stood there, eyes unfocused, like he was trying to hold on to something that kept slipping just out of reach. He nodded, the words echoed in his mind, not as sound, as meaning, because that wasn't fear, that wasn't panic, that was choice. The biker in front of him didn't rush, didn't fill the space. He let it sit, let Marcus feel it. "He always did that," one of the men behind him said quietly. "Before something big." Marcus's head lifted slightly. "What do you mean?" The man stepped forward just enough to be seen. Older, scarred, eyes tired in a way that didn't come from age. "He checked people," he said. "Made sure everyone was where they needed to be." A pause. "Like he was responsible for them." Marcus felt that one land, deep. Because responsibility, that was something he understood. That was something he had tried to teach. "He wasn't just riding with us," the lead biker added. "He was leading." Marcus frowned slightly. "You said second position." The man nodded. "Yeah." A small pause. "Because that's where the real leaders ride." Marcus didn't respond, but something in his expression shifted, just slightly, because that wasn't what he expected to hear. "He didn't need to be in front to control the road," the biker continued. "He watched everything, adjusted everything." Another biker added, "He saw things before we did." Marcus's hands clenched slowly, because that sounded like, no. He pushed the thought away, too fast, too dangerous. "We didn't realize how much we relied on him," the lead biker said. "Not until that night." Silence again. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was building. Marcus looked at him. "You're saying he was in charge?" The man shook his head slightly. "Not officially." A pause. "But yeah, he was." That hit differently. Because now, this wasn't just about what Ethan did. It was about who he became. "He was next," another biker said from the back. The words were quiet, but they carried. Marcus turned his head slightly. "Next?" The lead biker nodded once. "Next in line." Marcus blinked, like his mind needed time to catch up. "For what?" The answer came simple. "For leadership." Silence. Marcus stared at them, at all of them. These weren't small men. These weren't followers. These were the kind of men who didn't bow, didn't wait, didn't answer to just anyone. And they were standing here, talking about his son like he mattered, like he was something more than the version Marcus had buried. "No," Marcus said quietly. "That's not possible." But the words didn't carry conviction, not anymore. The biker didn't argue, didn't push. He just said, "He earned it." Marcus looked away. Again. Because that was getting harder to face. "He didn't get there by chance," the man continued. "He worked for it. Every mile, every fight, every call." A pause. "He wanted it." Marcus frowned. "Why?" That question mattered. Because everything Marcus believed depended on the answer. Why would his son choose that life? Why would he stay away? Why would he? "He had a plan," the biker said. Marcus's head snapped back up. "What?" The man reached into his jacket again, slow, careful, Not sudden, not threatening, just deliberate. Marcus's eyes locked onto his hand, because something about this moment felt different. He didn't tell everyone, the biker said. Just a few of us. A beat. But we knew enough. Marcus's voice dropped. Knew what? The biker looked at him. Really looked at him like he was about to hand him something heavier than anything so far. He wasn't climbing for power, he said. A pause. He was climbing for a way out. Marcus froze. The words didn't make sense at first. Then, they did. Out, he repeated. The biker nodded. Yeah. A longer pause. He wanted control, influence, money. Marcus's brow tightened. That doesn't sound like getting out. The man shook his head slightly. Not for us. Another pause. But for him, it was the only way. Marcus didn't breathe, didn't move, because something was starting to form, something he hadn't allowed himself to think about. He said it more than once, the biker continued. A beat. He said he couldn't go back empty. Marcus's chest tightened, hard. Back where? The biker didn't look away. Back to you. Silence. Total. Marcus felt his knees weaken, not enough to fall, but enough to remind him he wasn't as steady as he thought. He wanted to build something, the biker said. Something real. Marcus shook his head slowly. No, but it wasn't denial anymore. It was fear. Because this version of the story was starting to sound like something he couldn't survive. He talked about it all the time, another biker added quietly. Marcus turned his head. Talked about what? The man hesitated, just for a second, then said, a place. A pause. Small. Quiet. Off the highway. Marcus's heart started to pound again, louder, faster, because now, he knew, before they even said it. The lead biker finished the thought. A cafe. Marcus's breath left him, completely, like something had just punched straight through his chest. No, he whispered. But the biker wasn't done. He had a name for it, he said. A pause. And then, Marcus and Son. Marcus didn't move, didn't blink, didn't speak. Because in that moment, everything he believed about his son started to fall apart. No, the word barely made it out. Marcus's lips moved, but the sound felt chijim, even to him. A cafe, he repeated, slower this time, like the meaning needed time to sink in. The biker nodded. He had it all planned. Marcus shook his head again, but weaker now, because something deep inside him recognized this, not the details, not the life his son had lived, but the idea, the dream. He used to talk about that, Marcus said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. When he was a kid, no one interrupted. Because now, this wasn't just their story anymore. It was his. He'd sit at the counter, Marcus continued, eyes unfocused, staring somewhere far beyond the diner walls. Used to say, we should have our own place one day. A small pause. He said I made better coffee than anyone in town. A faint, almost invisible smile touched his lips, then disappeared just as quickly. I told him it was stupid, Marcus added. The words landed heavy. I said people like us don't get things like that. Silence. One of the bikers shifted. Another looked away. Because now, this wasn't just about Ethan's choice. It was about everything that led to it. He didn't think so, the lead biker said softly. Marcus let out a slow breath. No, he didn't. A pause. Then, so he left. The old belief came back. Automatic, familiar, safe. He chased something else. The biker shook his head. No. Marcus's eyes hardened slightly. That's what it looks like. The man stepped just a fraction closer. Or, he was building something you couldn't see yet. That hit, not like a punch, like pressure, slow, unavoidable. Marcus didn't answer, because now, he wasn't sure anymore. The biker looked at him carefully, then continued. After he broke their line, Marcus's head lifted again. The shift back into the story was sudden, sharp. What happened? He asked. The man exhaled slowly. He bought us time, a pause. Seconds, maybe a minute, another biker added. But it was enough, Marcus nodded slightly, because he understood that. Sometimes one moment changes everything. We took the opening, the lead biker said, pushed through before they could regroup. Marcus's hands tightened again. And him? The question came faster this time, because now he needed to know. The biker didn't look away. He kept going. Marcus shook his head. No, he didn't turn, the man said. Marcus's voice rose slightly. Why not? Silence. Then, because they were still chasing him. Marcus froze. The answer hit instantly. Clean, brutal, final. He pulled them away from us, the biker said. A pause. Drew fire, drew movement, drew everything. Another voice from behind. They stopped looking at us. Marcus's chest tightened again, because now there was no other version of this, no escape, no misunderstanding. He knew, Marcus whispered. The biker nodded. Yeah. Marcus looked down again, at the floor, at the rag, at the place where he had been cleaning someone else's mess, while his son, he shut his eyes, tight. What happened after that, he asked. The words came out strained, like they were being pulled from somewhere deep. The biker didn't rush, didn't soften it, because at this point, there was no way to soften truth. He reached the ridgeline, he said. Marcus's eyes opened again, slow. He was ahead of them by then, the man continued, but not by much. A pause. They were closing in. Marcus's throat went dry. How many? Enough. Same answer as before, same weight. Marcus nodded slightly, because now he didn't need numbers, he understood. He had one chance, the biker said. Marcus leaned forward just a fraction. What chance? The man's voice dropped, lower now, heavier. To disappear, Marcus frowned. Then why didn't he? The biker held his gaze, because this was the moment, the real one. He could have taken the side road, he said, cut into the canyon, lost them. A beat. He saw it. Marcus didn't move, didn't blink. And? The answer came quiet, but it broke something. He didn't take it. Marcus's breath hitched. Why? The word barely formed, because deep down, he already knew. The biker said it anyway. Because they would have turned back. Silence. Total. Marcus felt it this time, fully. The weight, the meaning, the choice. If Ethan had saved himself, the others would have died. So he didn't. He chose them. Marcus's shoulders dropped, not slowly, all at once, like something inside him finally gave up resisting. He stayed, Marcus whispered. The biker nodded. Yeah. A long pause. Then Marcus asked, what did he do? The question wasn't angry anymore, wasn't defensive. It was something else now, something closer to understanding. The biker took a breath, slow, controlled, because the next part, there was no coming back from. He slowed down, he said. Marcus frowned slightly. Why? The man's eyes didn't leave his, because he needed them to catch up. Silence, and in that silence, everything became clear. He slowed down. Marcus stared at him. The words didn't make sense at first, not in the way everything else had. Why? He asked again, but his voice was quieter now, because deep down, he was starting to understand. The biker didn't look away. Because speed wasn't the point anymore. A pause. Time was. Marcus's chest tightened, because that meant this wasn't about escaping. This was about holding. He needed them focused on him, the biker continued, not searching, not thinking. Another rider added quietly. He wanted them locked in. Marcus swallowed. So they wouldn't go back. The biker nodded once. Exactly. Silence. Heavy. Marcus looked down at his hands again. They were shaking now, not much, but enough, because every piece of this fit too perfectly. He reached the ridge, the biker said. A pause. Road narrowed even more. No cover, no exits. Marcus's breathing slowed, like his body was bracing. He stopped fighting the road, the man continued, started controlling it. Marcus frowned slightly. What does that mean? The biker shifted his weight. He positioned himself dead center, he said, forced them to line up behind him. Another voice. Made them predictable. Marcus's eyes lifted again, because that wasn't reckless, that was calculated. That was strategy. He wasn't running anymore, the biker said. A beat. He was leading them. Marcus's throat tightened, because that word meant something different now, not the leader of a group, but the one who decides how things end. How close were they? Marcus asked. The answer came low. Close enough to see his back. Silence. Marcus's fingers curled. And he just stayed there? The biker nodded. Yeah. A pause. Right where he needed to be. Marcus shook his head slowly. No, that's not survival. The man looked at him. No. A longer pause. It wasn't. That truth settled in. Cold. Final. Marcus closed his eyes again, because now there was no version of this where his son came back, no alternate ending, no mistake, just choice. What happened next? He asked. The question came out steadier now, not because it hurt less, but because he needed to see it through. The biker took a slow breath. They started firing again, he said. Marcus's eyes opened. They thought he was trying to escape, the man continued. Didn't realize he'd already decided not to. Another rider added. They kept pushing. Marcus nodded faintly. Because that's what hunters do. They chase. They don't question. He adjusted speed just enough to keep them engaged, the biker said. Never too fast, never too slow. Marcus's brow tightened. He was controlling them. Yeah, a pause. Every move, silence. Then, he reached the bend. Marcus leaned forward slightly. What bend? The biker's eyes darkened just a fraction. The one that drops into the canyon. Marcus felt it instantly. That shift, that drop in his stomach. Because now, this was the end. There's a section there, the biker continued. No guardrail, just open edge. Another voice from the back. Nothing but air. Marcus didn't move, didn't breathe, because he already knew. He already knew what came next. And, he whispered. The biker looked at him, straight, unflinching. He didn't turn. Marcus's heart slammed once, hard. No. But it wasn't denial anymore. It was grief, the kind that hasn't fully formed yet, but is already there. He held the line, the biker said. A pause. Straight toward the edge. Marcus took a step back. His leg hit the table again. This time, he felt it, but it didn't matter. Why? He whispered, even though he already knew. The biker answered anyway. Because they followed. Silence. Total. They didn't realize, the man continued, not until it was too late. Marcus's chest rose, fell, slow, heavy. Did he? He couldn't finish it. Didn't need to. The biker understood. Yeah, he said quietly. A long pause. Then, he looked back one last time. Marcus's eyes snapped up. At who? The answer came soft, but it broke everything. At all of us. Marcus's breath caught. And then, he asked, barely. The biker didn't rush it, didn't soften it, because some moments deserve the truth exactly as they are. He let go. Silence. Deep. Endless. Marcus didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even blink, because in that moment, the version of his son he had carried for years was gone. And something else, something bigger, took its place. He let go. The words didn't echo. They didn't need to. They just stayed there, heavy, final, like something carved into stone. Marcus didn't move, didn't breathe, because his mind was trying to catch up to something his heart already understood. No, he whispered, but it wasn't denial anymore. It was grief finding its voice. The biker in front of him didn't interrupt, didn't rush to fill the silence, because this part belonged to Marcus now. He didn't crash, the man said quietly. Marcus's eyes lifted slightly, confused. What? The biker shook his head. No panic, no loss of control. A pause. He chose it. Silence. That word, chose, cut deeper than anything else. Marcus's chest tightened so hard it hurt, because that meant it wasn't an accident, it wasn't bad luck. It wasn't something that just happened, it was a decision. He lined it up, the biker continued. Perfect. Another rider behind him spoke, voice low. Straight through the bend, Marcus swallowed, hard. Why like that? The biker looked at him. Because if even one of them pulled back, a pause. They could have turned around. Marcus nodded slowly. Because now, he saw it, clear, painfully clear. So he made sure they didn't, Marcus said. The biker didn't answer. He didn't need to. Silence said enough. Marcus's hands trembled now, more than before. Because this wasn't just about what happened, it was about what it meant. He took the choice away from them, the biker said. A pause. They were committed the second they followed him. Marcus's breathing grew uneven, because that meant there was no stopping it, no saving him, no turning back. They were too close, the biker continued, too focused. Another voice. They thought they had him. Marcus let out a broken breath. And he knew they didn't. The biker nodded once. Yeah. A long silence followed. Then Marcus asked, Did anyone see it happen? The question came out fragile, like he wasn't sure he wanted the answer. The biker hesitated, just for a second, then nodded. Yeah. Marcus's eyes dropped. Who? The man didn't look away. I did. That landed differently. Personal. Immediate. Marcus looked back up. Tell me. The words were quiet but steady, because now he needed all of it, not pieces, not fragments, everything. The biker took a slow breath, like he was stepping back into it. I was the last one through, he said. Marcus didn't blink. I looked back, the man continued, just once. A pause. I shouldn't have, but I did. Marcus's throat tightened. What did you see? The biker's eyes shifted slightly. Not away, just inward, like he was seeing it again. He was already at the edge, he said. Marcus's chest stopped moving. Front wheel just past the line. A beat. Rear still on the road, Marcus's fingers curled. And them? Right behind him. Silence. The kind that presses in, heavy, unforgiving. They didn't slow down, the biker said. Didn't realize what was happening. Another pause. And he didn't give them time to, Marcus whispered. What do you mean? The biker looked at him, straight. He leaned forward. Marcus's breath caught. Just a little, the man added. A pause. Enough. Marcus shook his head slowly. No. But his voice didn't carry strength anymore, only pain. He let the bike go, the biker said. Marcus's vision blurred slightly, because now there was no distance left, no buffer, no space between what happened and what it meant. He disappeared over the edge, the man continued, a beat, and they followed. Silence. Absolute. Marcus didn't hear the rest of the diner, didn't hear the wind, didn't hear anything. Because in that moment, everything inside him collapsed, not violently, not all at once, but completely. How many? He asked. The question came out empty. The biker answered quietly. All of them. Marcus nodded once, slow, like his body was moving without him, because what else was there to do? What else could he say? The man in front of him took a step back, gave him space, not out of distance, out of respect. By the time we got around the ridge, he said softly, there was nothing left to save. Marcus closed his eyes. And this time, he didn't open them right away, because for the first time in years, he wasn't trying to hold anything back. Marcus stood perfectly still, eyes closed, hands hanging at his sides like they no longer belonged to him. No one in the diner moved, no one spoke, because something sacred had just been placed in the room and no one dared disturb it. There was nothing left to save. The words echoed somewhere far away, distant, muted, like they were meant for someone else. Marcus slowly opened his eyes, but he didn't look at the biker, didn't look at anyone. He looked at the floor, at the stain, at the broken plate he never finished cleaning, and for the first time, it didn't matter. He was alone, Marcus said. It wasn't a question. The biker shook his head. No. Marcus frowned slightly, confused. No? The man's voice softened. Not the way you think. A pause. He knew we were behind him. Marcus's jaw tightened. That's not the same. The biker stepped closer again, not imposing, just present. It was to him. Silence. Marcus didn't argue, because something in that answer felt true, painfully true. He didn't run from anything, the biker continued. He faced it. Another rider added quietly. For all of us. Marcus's chest rose slowly, fell. And you lived, he said. It was an accusation, but it carried weight. The biker nodded. Yeah. A pause. Because he made sure we did. Marcus looked at him then. Really looked at the scars, at the age, at the men behind him, standing silent, still, carrying something they couldn't put down. And for the first time, Marcus saw it. Not bikers, not strangers, not threats. Men who had been given something and didn't know how to repay it. Why come here? Marcus asked. His voice was quieter now, not defensive, not angry, just tired. The biker didn't hesitate. Because he told us to. Marcus blinked. What? The man reached into his jacket again, slow, careful. This time, Marcus didn't look away, because now, he knew, whatever that was, it mattered. He gave this to me, the biker said. He unfolded it slightly, worn edges, creased from time, from being carried, protected. Before the ride, Marcus's breath caught. Before, the biker nodded. Yeah, a pause. He said, if anything ever happened, Marcus's hands tightened. To find you. Silence. Marcus felt it hit, deep, hard, because that meant Ethan knew, not everything, not the exact moment, but enough to prepare. Why? Marcus whispered. The biker looked at him. And this time, there was something different in his eyes, not just respect, not just memory, something closer to understanding. Because you were always the plan, he said. Marcus froze. The words didn't just land, they broke something open. No, he said, shaking his head. No, I wasn't. You were, the man said quietly. Marcus stepped back. Again, like he needed space from the truth. He never talked about leaving you behind, the biker continued. Not once. Marcus's breathing became uneven. That's not what it looked like. I know, a pause. But that's not what it was. Silence. The kind that forces you to listen, even when you don't want to. He said he had to build something first, the biker said. Marcus closed his eyes again. Just briefly, because he had heard that before. But never like this. He said he couldn't come back empty, the man added. Marcus whispered. He said that? The biker nodded. More than once. Another rider spoke from behind. He meant it. Marcus's chest tightened again. Because now, this wasn't just a story. It was a pattern, a truth repeated, proven, lived. He said you deserved more than what he had when he left, the biker continued. Marcus shook his head slowly. No, I didn't. He thought you did. That ended it. That argument, that resistance. Because this wasn't about what Marcus believed anymore. It was about what his son had chosen to believe. He wanted to come back right, the biker said. A pause. Not broken, not lost. Marcus looked down again, at his hands, at the years, at everything that had passed. So he stayed away, Marcus said. The biker didn't correct him, just said, he worked. A beat. Every day. Marcus nodded slightly, because now it made sense, in the worst way. He climbed fast, the biker continued, faster than anyone expected. Another rider added. He didn't cut corners. Marcus let out a slow breath. Of course he didn't, because that sounded like him, the boy he remembered. The one he thought he lost. He earned everything, the biker said. A pause. And he was close. Marcus looked up again. Close to what? The man held his gaze. To finishing it. Silence. Then Marcus asked, finishing what? The biker slowly lifted the folded paper in his hand, held it out, between them. This. Marcus didn't reach for it, not yet, because now he understood. This wasn't just paper. This was the last piece, the last truth, the last connection. What is it? He asked, even though he already knew. The biker answered quietly. It's from him. A pause. For you. Marcus stared at it, his hand trembling slightly at his side. Because in that moment, everything led here, every year, every silence, every wrong belief, every missed chance, all of it came down to this. The biker stepped closer, just enough, and said, "He wrote it before the ride." Marcus's breath caught. "Before?" the man nodded. "Yeah." A beat. Like he knew he wouldn't get another chance. Silence. Marcus slowly raised his hand, stopped halfway, because taking it meant everything changed, forever. "I don't think I can," he said. The words came out fragile, honest. The biker didn't pull it back, didn't push it forward. He just said, "You can." Marcus looked at him, then at the letter, then back again. And for the first time, he didn't feel like the old man on his knees. He felt like a father, standing at the edge of something he couldn't undo. Slowly, his fingers moved and took it. Marcus held the letter like it might break, or worse, like it might break him. The paper was warm, not from heat, from being carried, kept close, protected. For how long? He didn't know, didn't ask, because right now, nothing mattered except the weight in his hands. The diner was silent, completely. Even Rick didn't move, didn't speak, didn't breathe loud enough to be noticed, because whatever this was, it wasn't his place anymore. Marcus looked down at the folded paper. His fingers trembled slightly along the edges, not from age, from fear. "I thought he forgot me," Marcus said quietly. The words slipped out, unplanned, raw. The biker in front of him shook his head. "No," Marcus let out a slow breath. "I thought I wasn't enough." Silence. No one interrupted. Because now, this wasn't about the story anymore. It was about truth, the kind people don't say out loud. "He used to look at me like I had all the answers," Marcus continued, "like I could fix anything." A faint, broken smile touched his face. "I couldn't even keep him here." The biker's voice came low. "You didn't lose him." Marcus shook his head. "I did." A pause. Then, "I just didn't know how." That landed. Not heavy, not loud, just real. Marcus looked down at the letter again. His thumb brushed over the crease. Worn. Opened before? Maybe. Or maybe just held long enough to matter. "He really wrote this?" Marcus asked. The biker nodded. "Yeah." A pause. "Same night we left." Marcus swallowed. "Why then?" The answer came simple. Because he didn't like unfinished things. Marcus closed his eyes for a second. Because that sounded exactly like him. The boy who used to stay up late fixing broken radios, the kid who wouldn't leave a job half done, the son who... He stopped himself. Too late. The memory was already there. Marcus opened his eyes again. Slow. Careful. Like he was stepping into something fragile. "Did he say anything?" he asked. The biker thought for a moment, then nodded. "Yeah." A pause. He said, "If something happens..." Marcus's grip tightened. "Don't let him think I left." Silence. Complete. Marcus didn't move, didn't breathe, because that sentence destroyed everything he had believed. "I spent years hating him," Marcus whispered. The words barely made it out. "I told myself he chose something else." A pause. "I told myself he didn't care." His voice cracked. Not loud, not dramatic, just broken. The biker didn't interrupt, didn't try to fix it. Because some things you don't fix, you just let them exist. Marcus looked at the letter again. Then slowly, carefully, he began to unfold it. The paper made a soft sound, barely audible. But in that moment, it was the loudest thing in the room. His hands weren't steady now. They shook, not violently, but enough to show this mattered. The fold opened halfway, then fully. Marcus stared at the handwriting. For a second, he didn't read. He just looked, because that was enough to recognize it. Messy, strong, familiar. "That's his," Marcus whispered. The biker nodded. "Yeah." A long pause followed. Marcus's eyes traced the lines, but the words, they didn't come in right away. Because reading this, meant accepting everything, every mistake, every wrong thought, every year he spent believing the wrong story. His thumb pressed lightly against the paper, like he was afraid it would disappear. "I'm not ready," Marcus said. The words were honest, quiet, real. The biker didn't push, didn't rush him. He just said, "He wrote it for you." Marcus nodded slowly. "I know." A pause. "That's why it's hard." Silence again. But this time, it wasn't heavy, it was waiting. Marcus took a breath, deep, unsteady, then another. And then, he lowered his eyes to the first line. His lips parted, and for the first time, he read, "Dad." The word hit harder than anything before it, because it wasn't a memory. It wasn't someone else telling a story. It was him, his son, speaking, directly. Marcus's hand trembled, but he didn't stop. He kept reading. "Dad." Marcus's voice barely held together. The word didn't feel like ink on paper. It felt alive, like it had been waiting all these years, just to reach him. His eyes moved to the next line, slow, careful, like every word might disappear if he rushed. "I don't know if you'll ever read this." Marcus's breath caught, a sharp, quiet sound in his chest, because already, that was wrong. He was reading it, too late, but still. "But I need to say this somewhere." Marcus swallowed hard. His fingers tightened around the edges of the letter. "I didn't leave you." The words blurred instantly. Marcus blinked, once, twice, but it didn't help, because it wasn't his eyes, it was everything else. "I never walked away from you." His lips trembled, slightly, uncontrollably. "I just didn't know how to come back the right way." Marcus let out a broken breath. That one hurt deeper than anything, because it sounded like something he could have said himself, years ago, if he had known how. "I know what it looked like." Marcus's voice dropped lower, almost a whisper now. "Me leaving, not calling, not showing up." A pause. His hand shook harder. "I know you probably think I chose something else over you." Marcus closed his eyes for a second, tight, because that was exactly what he thought, exactly what he believed, exactly what he lived with. "I didn't." The word landed heavy, clear, unmistakable. Marcus opened his eyes again, slow, careful, like he was afraid to lose the line. "I chose a way to come back stronger." His chest tightened, because now it all connected, every piece, every silence, every year. "I couldn't come back the same man who left." Marcus's jaw clenched, because that was something he understood too well. "I needed to build something first." The diner was still silent, no movement, no sound, just the quiet weight of truth filling the space. "Something that meant I didn't fail you." Marcus shook his head slightly. "No," he whispered, "you didn't," but the words didn't reach the paper, didn't reach his son. They just stayed there. Too late. "I know I already did that once." That line broke him more than anything else, because that wasn't pride, that wasn't strength, that was guilt. Deep, personal, unresolved. Marcus's shoulders dropped, just a little. "I remember the way you looked at me the last time we spoke." His breathing became uneven, because now he remembered too. Not perfectly, but enough. The silence, the distance, the things left unsaid. "I've been carrying that with me every day." Marcus's grip tightened again. The paper crinkled slightly, but he didn't notice. "I told myself I'd fix it." A pause. "Not with words." Marcus nodded faintly, because that sounded like him. "By becoming someone you could be proud of." The words hit deeper than anything before, because that was never what Marcus asked for, never what he needed. And yet, it was everything his son had believed. "I didn't want to come back empty." Marcus's eyes blurred again. "I didn't want to stand in front of you and have nothing to show for the time I was gone." A long pause. Marcus didn't move, didn't breathe, because now he saw it, clear, painful, true. His son didn't leave him, he left to return better. "I know that doesn't excuse anything," Marcus whispered. "It does, but again, too late." The letter didn't hear him. "I know I should have called." His voice cracked slightly as he read. "I should have written sooner." A pause. "But I kept thinking, one more step." Marcus's chest tightened again. "One more month. Another breath. One more chance to make it right. Silence. Because that's how people get lost, not by leaving, but by waiting too long to come back. Marcus lowered the paper slightly, just for a second. His eyes closed again. Tears now, real, unhidden, unstoppable, because everything he thought was true was wrong. And the truth hurt more than the lie ever did. But he didn't stop. He lifted the letter again, because now he needed the rest. Marcus's hands didn't steady, not even a little. If anything, they trembled more now, because every line he read wasn't just words, it was time, years of it, years he could never get back. I kept telling myself, just a little longer. His voice cracked again, quiet, uncontrolled. Just one more step before I come home. Marcus's jaw tightened, because he knew that thinking, knew it too well. Wait until things are better. Wait until you're ready. Wait until it's worth it. And then suddenly, it's too late. I didn't want you to see me like I was when I left. Marcus shut his eyes again, because that line, that one hurt differently. Not guilt, not regret, shame. His son had been ashamed, not of Marcus, of himself. I remember that day more clearly than anything else. Marcus's breathing slowed. He didn't want to remember, but he did. The argument, the silence after, the way the door closed. I remember the way you didn't stop me. Marcus flinched, physically, because that part he never allowed himself to think about. I waited for you to say something. Marcus's grip tightened hard enough to crease the paper. I waited for you to tell me to stay. A long silence filled the diner, because now, this wasn't just about Ethan, this was about Marcus too. I told myself you didn't care, Marcus whispered. I did, but his voice was barely sound, just breath. I told myself I didn't matter enough for you to stop me. That one broke something deeper, because it mirrored everything Marcus had felt too. Two people, standing on opposite sides of the same moment, both thinking the same thing, both wrong. Marcus lowered his head slightly, the weight of it pressing down. I was wrong. The words on the page were simple, but they carried everything. You didn't stop me because you thought I needed to go. Marcus's lips parted. Because that was true. He remembered thinking it. Let him learn. Let him figure it out. He'll come back. I didn't understand that back then. Marcus nodded slowly, because neither of them did. Not then. I thought leaving meant I was alone. A pause. But I wasn't. Marcus's eyes lifted slightly, back to the page. I carried you with me everywhere. Silence, soft but full. In everything I did, I kept hearing your voice. Marcus's chest tightened again. Do it right. A faint, broken breath left him. Don't cut corners. Another line. Finish what you start. Marcus's eyes blurred again, because those weren't just words. Those were his words. Things he said without thinking. Things he didn't know would stay. I tried to live up to that. Marcus shook his head. Slow. Because he never asked for that. Never needed that. You would have hated the way I got there. A small pause. But I never forgot why I was doing it. Marcus's breathing grew uneven again, because now everything pointed to one thing, one truth he couldn't avoid anymore. You. The single word sat alone on the page. Marcus didn't move, didn't blink, because that word was everything. I did it for you. Silence. Deep. Still. Marcus's hand shook so much now he had to steady the paper with his other hand, because the weight of that truth was almost too much to hold. I wanted to come back with something real. A pause. Something we could build together. Marcus swallowed. Hard. Because now, there was no denying it, no twisting it, no escaping it. His son didn't leave him. His son was coming back. He just never made it. Marcus's shoulders dropped, completely now, like whatever strength he had left to resist was gone. But he kept reading, because there was more. And now, he needed all of it. Marcus stared at the next lines for a long time, too long, because something inside him already knew. This part would hurt the most. His fingers tightened around the paper. Then, slowly, he kept reading. I found a way to make it real. His breath caught, because that wasn't hope. That was certainty. I know you always said dreams don't mean anything unless you build them. Marcus's lips parted slightly. Because he did say that, more times than he could count, usually without thinking, never knowing those words would follow his son this far. So I stopped dreaming. A pause. I started building. Marcus nodded faintly, because that sounded like him, like something he taught, like something he lived. I worked my way up. His eyes moved slower now, every word heavier. Not the right way, not the easy way. A beat. But the only way I had. Marcus's jaw tightened, because he understood what that meant, even if he didn't like it, even if part of him wished it had been different. I didn't want you to see that part of me. His chest tightened again. I wanted you to see what came after. Silence. Because that line carried everything, the sacrifice, the distance, the years, all for a moment that never came. I got close. Marcus's fingers trembled, stronger now, because this was it, the edge, the place where everything almost changed. I had people behind me. A pause. Real people. Marcus glanced up for just a second, at the men standing around him, silent, still, watching, then back to the letter. People who believed in me. Another pause. People I trusted. Marcus swallowed. Because now, he knew, these men weren't just telling a story, they were part of it. I was almost there. His breath hitched, because that word, almost, hurt more than anything else. I had enough saved. Marcus's grip tightened. I had a place in mind, a beat. Small, quiet, just like we used to talk about. His vision blurred again, but he kept going. I even drew it out. Marcus froze. Drew it, the words barely left his lips. I kept the sketch with me. A pause. Wanted to show you. Marcus closed his eyes, tight, because now it wasn't just a dream. It was real. It existed, somewhere, and he never saw it. I was going to come back. His chest rose sharply. Not to ask. A pause. To build. Marcus shook his head slowly, because that was exactly what he would have wanted. Not words, not apologies, just action, just presence. I was going to fix everything. Silence. And that was the line that broke him. Because some things you can't fix. Not after enough time passes, not after enough silence. Marcus's shoulders started to shake, just slightly. But it was there now, unstoppable. I was going to put your name on the door. His breath collapsed completely, because that was something he never imagined, not even in his best memories. Marcus and son. The words hit differently this time, not as a dream, not as an idea, as something real, something his son had already chosen, already believed in. Marcus's hand trembled so badly now he almost lost grip of the letter, but he held on, because there was one part left. And he knew it, he could feel it, the end, the part his son never got to say out loud. I just needed a little more time. Marcus's eyes closed again, because that was the cruelest part of all. Time, always just out of reach, always one step too late. I'm sorry I didn't come back sooner. His voice broke completely now, uncontrolled, unhidden. I'm sorry I made you think I left. A tear fell, then another. Marcus didn't wipe them away, didn't try, because there was no point. I never stopped being your son. Silence. Deep. Final. Marcus lowered the paper slightly, his chest rising and falling unevenly, because everything inside him had changed. Everything. The man he thought he lost never left, and the man he thought abandoned him had spent years trying to come back. Marcus looked down at the last line, the final words, and read them. Marcus's eyes fixed on the final line. Everything before it had already broken him, but this was the part that stayed, the part that didn't leave, the part that would live inside him long after this moment ended. His lips moved slowly, carefully, like saying it wrong would somehow take it away. I love you, Dad. Silence. Not the kind that fills a room, the kind that empties it. Marcus didn't move, didn't breathe, because that line That simple, ordinary line was the one thing he had lived without for years, and it had been there all along, waiting. He swallowed, hard, but it didn't help, because his chest felt too tight, too full. Like something inside him had finally broken open, and there was no closing it again. I never stopped. His voice cracked as he read the last words. I just needed you to believe that. The paper slipped slightly in his hands. He caught it. Barely. Because his fingers weren't steady anymore. Nothing about him was. The letter ended there. No signature. No goodbye. Just that. Because there was nothing else left to say. Marcus stood there for a long moment, looking at the page. Not reading anymore. Just holding it. Like it was the only thing keeping him standing. Then, slowly, his knees gave way. Not completely. Not a fall. But enough that he had to reach for the edge of a table to steady himself. No one rushed to him. No one touched him. Because this wasn't something anyone could help with. Marcus lowered himself into the nearest chair. The same chair where customers sat every day. The same chair where people complained about food, about prices, about things that didn't matter. Now, it held a man who had just lost and found his son at the same time. His hands dropped into his lap, still holding the letter, trembling, his head bowed, shoulders shaking now, not slightly, not controlled, open, raw, real, and then he cried, not loud, not dramatic, but deep, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere buried for years, the kind that doesn't ask permission, doesn't stop halfway, doesn't care who sees. I thought, you left me. The words broke out between breaths. I thought you didn't want to come back. No one spoke. No one interrupted. Because this wasn't something you step into. This was something you witness. I was wrong. Marcus's voice collapsed under the weight of it, completely. I was so wrong. His grip tightened on the letter again, like he was afraid to lose it, like letting go would mean losing him all over again. I should have gone after you. A broken breath. I should have said something. Another. I should have stopped you. Silence. Heavy. Because those words, they don't change anything, but they still need to be said. Marcus leaned forward slightly, elbows on his knees, head in his hands, the letter pressed against his chest like he was trying to hold it inside. Hold him inside. I didn't know, he whispered, and that was the truth, not an excuse, not a defense, just truth. He didn't know, and now he did. Too late. But real. A long time passed like that, or maybe just a few seconds. No one could tell. Time didn't work the same in moments like this. Finally, Marcus lifted his head, slow, eyes red, face worn in a way that had nothing to do with age. He looked at the biker in front of him, really looked this time. Not as a stranger, not as a threat, but as someone who carried part of his son's last moments. He really said all that? Marcus asked. His voice was quiet, fragile, but steady enough. The biker nodded once. Yeah. A pause. Every word. Marcus looked down at the letter again, then back up. He believed it? The question hung there. Important. The biker didn't hesitate. More than anything. Silence. Marcus nodded slowly. Because that was enough. That was everything. He looked around the diner then, at the broken plate, at the stains, at Rick, standing frozen, pale, completely irrelevant now, at the men filling the room, watching him, waiting, not for orders, not for control, for something else, something deeper. Marcus took a slow breath, wiped his face with the back of his hand, not to hide it, just to see clearly again. Then he said, "What happens now?" The question wasn't lost. It wasn't empty. It was the first step forward, and every man in that room felt it, because the story wasn't over. Not yet. What happens now? The question didn't hang in the air. It landed, solid, like something real had just begun. The biker in front of Marcus studied him for a moment, not judging, not testing, just making sure. Because this part mattered more than anything before. "We finish what he started," the man said. Simple, direct. Marcus's eyes didn't leave his. How? The biker didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced around the diner, at the cracked tiles, at the greasy counter, at the broken plates still scattered across the floor. At Rick. Standing there like a man who suddenly realized he had been standing in the wrong place this whole time. "You don't belong here," the biker said. Not to Marcus, to the room, to everything in it. Marcus followed his Vzglad, slowly, taking it all in, for the first time, not as something he was stuck in, but as something he could leave. Rick finally snapped. "This is my place," he said, voice shaky but trying to hold authority. "You don't get to walk in here and start making decisions." No one reacted, not at first, because Rick's voice didn't carry weight anymore. It just filled space, empty space. The biker turned his head slightly, looked at him. That was all it took. Rick swallowed, hard. "You been making him clean floors on his knees?" the biker asked. Calm, too calm. Rick shifted. "It's his job." The man took one step forward. Rick stopped talking. "You been breaking plates just so he picks them up?" the biker continued. Rick's eyes flickered, looking for support, finding none. "I run this place." "No," the biker said, quiet, final. "You don't." Silence. Because power, real power, doesn't need to be loud. Marcus watched it happen, not with fear, not with confusion, but with something new. Clarity. Rick laughed nervously. "You think I'm scared of you?" No one answered, because the answer was obvious. Rick looked around again, at the men, at the door, at the empty tables, at the fact that nobody, not one person, was on his side. And for the first time, he understood. He had nothing here. Nothing real. "You don't even know him," Rick said, gesturing toward Marcus. "He's just some old man who couldn't keep his own kid." The sentence never finished. The biker didn't raise his voice. Didn't move fast. He just stepped closer, close enough that Rick had to step back. "You're done talking," he said. And that was it. Rick's mouth closed, completely. Marcus felt something shift inside him again. But this time, it wasn't pain, it wasn't grief, it was something else, something he hadn't felt in years. Respect, not from them, from himself. The biker turned back to Marcus. "We're not here just to tell you what happened," he said. A pause. "We're here because he made us promise something." Marcus's grip on the letter tightened slightly. "What?" The man nodded toward it. "That?" Marcus frowned. "The letter?" The biker shook his head. "No." A beat. "What comes after it?" Silence. Marcus's breathing slowed. Because now, this wasn't about the past anymore. This was about what came next. "He had plans," the biker said. Marcus nodded faintly. "I read them." "No," the man replied. "You read part of them." Marcus's eyes lifted. "What do you mean?" The biker reached into his jacket again. This time, he pulled out something thicker, not a letter, a folded stack, worn, used, real. He placed it on the table in front of Marcus, carefully. Marcus stared at it. "What is that?" the man answered quietly. "Everything he didn't have time to show you." Silence. Marcus's hand moved slowly, almost without permission. He touched the edge of the stack. Paper, multiple sheets. He unfolded it and froze. Drawings, lines, measurements, a layout. "No," Marcus whispered. His fingers traced the sketch, the counter, the tables, the kitchen space, even the placement of the windows. "This is," his voice broke again, "the cafe." The biker nodded. "Yeah." Marcus's eyes scanned it, desperate now, like he was trying to memorize every detail. "He designed it himself," the man added, "every inch." Another biker stepped forward slightly. "He talked about it all the time," Marcus swallowed. He really thought this would work? The answer came instantly. He knew it would. Marcus looked up, at all of them. "Why?" A pause. Then, "Because it was never just about the business." Silence. Marcus understood. Not fully, not yet, but enough. "It was about coming home," the biker said. That did it. Marcus leaned back slowly, the letter in one hand, the plans in the other. Past and future. Both real. Both his. Rick's voice came again, weaker now. "You're not seriously thinking?" Marcus stood up, slow, steady, and for the first time, he didn't look like a man who needed permission. He looked at Rick, direct, calm. "This place means nothing," Marcus said. "No anger, no shouting, just truth." Rick blinked. "You can't just walk out." Marcus nodded slightly. "I can." A pause. "And I am." Silence. Because that moment, that decision, was real, final, unstoppable. Marcus looked back at the biker, at the men, at the plans, then down at the letter again. His grip tightened, not from fear, from purpose. "What do we do first?" he asked, and this time there was no hesitation in his voice. "What do we do first?" The question settled into the room like a spark hitting dry wood. For a second, no one answered, not because they didn't know, because this moment mattered. The biker in front of Marcus studied him, not the way you look at someone weak, the way you look at someone who just made a decision that changes everything. Then he nodded once. "We build." Simple. Clear. Marcus glanced down at the sketches again. His fingers moved across the paper, slower now, more certain, like he wasn't just looking anymore. He was recognizing something that already belonged to him. "Where?" Marcus asked. The biker didn't hesitate. "We already found a spot." Marcus looked up. "You did?" Another man stepped forward, older, thick beard, scars across his knuckles. 2 miles off Route 16, he said. "Empty lot, good traffic, no competition close by." Marcus blinked. They didn't just come here with a story, they came prepared. "You planned all this?" Marcus asked. The lead biker shook his head slightly. "He did." A pause. "We just followed through." Silence. Marcus looked at the sketches again, at the lines, at the layout, at the name written in the corner, Marcus and Son. His chest tightened, but this time, it wasn't pain, it was something else, something steady. "He really thought I'd do this," Marcus said. The biker met his eyes. "He knew you would." That hit differently, because it wasn't hope, it wasn't guesswork, it was belief, the kind you don't question. Marcus exhaled slowly, then looked around the diner one last time. The grease-stained counter, the cracked floor, the broken plate still lying there, unfinished. Rick shifted again. "You walk out that door," he said, voice tight. "You don't come back." Marcus looked at him, not angry, not bitter, just done. "I was never here," Marcus said. Rick opened his mouth, then closed it, because there was nothing left to say, nothing that mattered. Marcus reached behind the counter, slow, deliberate. He untied the old apron from around his waist. The fabric was worn, stained, used for years. He looked at it for a second, then folded it once, and set it down, right on the counter, not thrown, not dropped, placed like something finished. That was the end of that life. No announcement, no argument, just over. The biker behind him spoke. "We've got tools ready," he said. "Materials coming in by morning." Another added. "Permits are already being handled." Marcus turned. "Permits?" The man nodded. "Connections." A faint, almost invisible smile passed through the group, because this wasn't just a favor. This was a promise being kept. Marcus let out a quiet breath, because now this wasn't just possible. It was real. "What about the money?" Marcus asked. The lead biker stepped forward. "That's covered." Marcus frowned. "Covered how?" The man held his gaze. He had a stake. A pause. "In more than just rides." Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly. "And what does that mean?" Another biker answered. "It means your son didn't just earn respect. A beat. He earned ownership." Silence. Marcus stared at him, because that changed everything again. "You're saying he left something behind?" Marcus asked. The lead biker nodded. "Yeah." A pause. "For you?" Marcus looked down at the plans again, then back at them. "Why would you give that to me?" The question came honest, real. Because men like these, they don't give things away. The answer came just as real. "Because it was never ours." A pause. "It was always meant for you." Silence. Marcus felt it settle, deep, unmovable. This wasn't charity. This wasn't pity. This was his. The result of everything his son had done, everything he had worked toward, everything he never got to finish. Marcus nodded slowly. All right. The word came quiet, but it carried weight, because that was it. Decision made, path chosen. No going back. The biker stepped aside slightly, clearing the space between Marcus and the door, not blocking, not leading, just opening the way. Marcus picked up the letter, folded it carefully, placed it inside his jacket, close, then took the sketches, held them firmly in his hand. Future, in paper form. He turned toward the door, each step steady, measured, different from the man who had been on his knees minutes ago, because that man was gone. The bell above the door rang as he pushed it open, same sound as before. But now it meant something else. Outside, the air was colder, sharper, real. The row of bikes stretched along the roadside, engines silent, waiting. Marcus stepped out, paused for just a second, looked at the sky. Gray, heavy, but not endless, not anymore. Behind him the bikers followed, one by one, not surrounding him, walking with him. The lead biker came to his side. You ready? He asked. Marcus looked ahead, not back, never back. Yeah, he said. A pause. Then, let's build it. The gravel crunched under Marcus's boots. A sound he hadn't paid attention to in years, simple, real. Each step away from the diner felt lighter, not easier, but clearer. Behind him, the door shut. The bell rang one last time, and that was it. No looking back. The lead biker walked beside him, close, but not crowding. You won't need anything from there, he said. Marcus nodded. I know, because everything that mattered now was in his jacket and in his hand. The letter, the plans, the rest didn't matter anymore. Rick's voice came faintly from inside, angry, desperate. You walk away, you're done, you hear me? Marcus didn't turn, didn't slow, didn't react, because for the first time, those words meant nothing. One of the bikers behind him let out a quiet breath. Guy doesn't even realize what just happened. Another answered, he will. A faint rumble of agreement passed through the group, not loud, not aggressive, just certain. Marcus reached the edge of the lot, stopped. The row of bikes stretched out in front of him, chrome, leather, steel, each one different, each one carrying a story. How many of you are there? Marcus asked. The lead biker glanced around. Enough. A small pause. More if needed. Marcus nodded slightly, because now he understood what that meant. This wasn't just a group, it was a network, a force, and for reasons he still couldn't fully process, they were here for him. One of the men stepped forward, holding out a helmet, old, scratched, used. Marcus looked at it, then at him. I don't ride, Marcus said. The man gave a small smile. Today you do. Marcus hesitated, just for a second, then took it. Not because he wanted to, because something inside him said. This mattered. He ran his fingers along the edge, cold metal, worn padding, real, like everything else today. The lead biker nodded toward the road. Truck's coming with the equipment, he said. We ride ahead. Marcus looked out. The highway stretched empty in both directions, gray sky above. Wind moving low across the asphalt, a new path, clear. How far is it? Marcus asked. 10 minutes. Marcus nodded. Then, slowly, he put the helmet on. It didn't fit perfectly, didn't need to. He adjusted it once, then looked up. Ready. One of the bikers kicked his stand up, another followed, then another. Engines roared to life, one by one, deep, heavy. The sound rolled across the empty lot like thunder. Not chaotic, controlled, unified. Marcus felt it in his chest. Not fear, not anymore. Something else. Movement. The lead biker swung onto his bike, looked at Marcus. Stay close, he said. Marcus nodded. I will. Another bike pulled up beside him. Hop on, the rider said. Marcus hesitated again, just for a second, then climbed on. Slow, careful, not used to it, but steady. The engine beneath him vibrated, strong, alive, different from anything he'd felt in years. "Hold on," the rider said. Marcus did. Not tight, not afraid, just enough. The lead biker raised a hand. The group went still. Then he dropped it, and they moved, all at once. The line pulled out onto the road, engines roaring, wind cutting across them. Marcus didn't look back, didn't think about the diner, didn't think about Rick, because none of that mattered anymore. The road opened ahead, wide, clear. For the first time in years, Marcus wasn't being pushed, wasn't being told, wasn't being used. He was moving forward, by choice. The biker in front accelerated slightly. The group followed, tight, controlled, like they'd done this 1,000 times. Marcus felt the wind against his face, cold, sharp, real, and for the first time, it didn't feel like something to endure. It felt like something to move through. The lead biker glanced back once, just to check. Marcus met his eyes and nodded. "I'm here." That was enough. The road curved ahead, and beyond it, something new waited. The engines cut one by one. The sudden silence felt different out here. Not empty, not heavy, open. Marcus slowly climbed off the bike. His boots touched the ground, firm, steady. He didn't rush, didn't speak. He just looked. The lot stretched out in front of him, wide, flat, untouched. A strip of land just off the highway, framed by worn gravel and a faded wooden fence that leaned slightly with age. Nothing special, nothing impressive, but it didn't need to be. Because Marcus didn't see what it was. He saw what it would become. "This is it," the lead biker said. Marcus nodded slowly. "Yeah." A pause. Wind moved across the open space, carrying dust and the faint smell of dry earth. Marcus stepped forward, each shag measured, deliberate, like he was walking into something that already belonged to him. One of the bikers moved ahead, unrolling a large tarp onto the ground. Another followed, placing tools beside it. Hammers, measuring tape, markers, real things, solid things, not ideas, not dreams, work. Marcus stopped where the center would be. He didn't need to check the sketch. He felt it, right there. "This is where the counter goes," he said quietly. The lead biker glanced at the plans, then back at Marcus. "Yeah," Marcus pointed slightly. "Table's there." A pause. "Kitchen in the back." Another biker nodded. "Matches the layout." Marcus exhaled slowly. Because this wasn't imagined. This was real. His son had seen this, planned this, built it, even if he never got to stand here. One of the men handed Marcus a marker. "Go ahead," he said. Marcus looked at it, then at him. "What for?" The man gave a small nod toward the ground. "First line." Silence. Marcus's hand tightened around the marker. Because that meant something. More than just a line, more than just a start. This was the moment, the point where everything changed. He stepped forward, bent down slightly. His knees protested, but he didn't stop, didn't hesitate. He pressed the marker to the ground and drew. A straight line, slow, careful, deliberate, no shaking, no doubt. When he finished, he stood back up, looked at it, then at the others. No one spoke. They didn't need to, because they understood. That line was the beginning. The lead biker stepped forward, picked up a sledgehammer, looked toward the old broken storage shack sitting at the edge of the lot, rotten wood, half-collapsed roof, left behind by whoever gave up on this place before. He glanced at Marcus. "You want to do it?" he asked. Marcus looked at the shack, then at the hammer. A pause. Then he nodded. The biker handed it over. Marcus took it, heavy, solid, real. He walked toward the shack, each step steady. No hesitation now, no doubt. He stopped a few feet away, looked at it, then raised the hammer. For a second, he paused, not because he wasn't sure, because he was. Then he swung. The wood cracked on impact, sharp, loud, final. The sound echoed across the empty land. Marcus didn't stop. He swung again and again, each hit stronger, cleaner, not anger, not rage, purpose. Behind him the others moved in, tools lifted, wood splintered, old walls came down, piece by piece. The past, gone, not forgotten, but replaced. The work didn't feel heavy, didn't feel forced. It felt right, like something long overdue. Time passed, minutes, maybe more, hard to tell. because no one was watching the clock. They were building. Marcus stepped back finally, breathing heavier, but steady. He looked at the ground again, at the line he drew, at the space now cleared, at the beginning of something real. The lead biker stepped beside him, looked out over the lot. He'd be proud, he said. Marcus didn't answer right away. He just stared ahead. Then slowly, he nodded. Yeah, he said. A pause. He would. And for the first time, there was no doubt in his voice. The sign went up just before sunrise. Marcus stood a few steps back, hands resting at his sides, eyes fixed on the wood as it was lifted into place. Fresh cut, clean lines, strong. 2 words burned deep into the surface. Marcus and Son. No decorations, no extra paint. It didn't need any, because the name said everything. Easy, easy. One of the bikers guided the top edge into position. Another tightened the bolts from below. Metal clicked, wood settled, and just like that, it was there. Permanent, real. Marcus didn't move, didn't speak. Because this moment, this exact moment, was the one his son never got to see. And yet, somehow, it still belonged to him. The lead biker stepped beside him, hands on his hips, looking up at the sign. He had good taste, he said quietly. Marcus nodded. Yeah. A pause. He always did. The sun broke over the horizon, slow, golden light stretching across the road, hitting the windows, the glass still new, still clean. Inside, the cafe stood ready. Tables set, chairs aligned, counter polished, coffee machine already humming low, everything in place, not perfect, but real. Marcus took a step forward, then another. He reached for the door, stopped, just for a second, because opening it meant stepping fully into something new, something he never thought he'd have, something his son had built without ever standing here. Marcus exhaled slowly, then pushed the door open. The bell rang. Clear, sharp, familiar, but different now. This time, it belonged to him. He stepped inside. The smell hit first. Fresh coffee, clean wood, warm air, not grease, not old oil, not years of someone else's place. This was his. Marcus moved behind the counter, his counter. His hands rested on the surface, smooth, solid. Right. He looked around, at the empty seats, at the quiet space, at the life waiting to fill it. Then, the door opened again. The bell rang. A man stepped in, followed by another, then 2 more. Regular people, travelers, curious, drawn in. Morning, one of them said. Marcus looked up, met his eyes, and for the first time, there was no hesitation. Morning, Marcus replied, his voice steady, clear, real. What can I get you? Outside, engines rumbled low. Not loud, not intrusive, just present. The bikers stood nearby, not inside, not taking over, just watching, making sure, protecting something that mattered. Across the road, the old diner sat quiet, empty, windows dark, no cars, no voices, no movement. Rick stood inside, staring out, alone, because people noticed. They always do. They follow where respect lives, where something real exists, and they leave what doesn't. Back inside, Marcus poured coffee. Careful, steady. He placed the cup down in front of the customer. No shaking, no hesitation. The man nodded. Smells good. Marcus allowed a small smile. It is. A pause. The kind that doesn't feel empty. The kind that feels full. Marcus glanced up once more. Through the front window, at the sign, at the road, at the world moving forward. Then, quietly, he spoke. Not to the room, not to anyone there, but to someone who never left. We built it, silence answered, but it wasn't empty, because for the first time, it felt like someone was listening, and that was enough.